Welcome to USAII AI Expert Talks, where we speak with technology leaders, innovators, and practitioners shaping the future of AI. I'm your host, Mike Spaeth, and today's conversation is titled Beyond the AI Demo, What It Really Takes to Make AI Work in the Enterprise. And our guest today is Jofia J. Prakash, an enterprise architect specializing in AI at the American Chemical Society. And she also serves on the AI Ethics and Governance Director at Humanity and AI and is a board advisor for the American Council for Ethical AI, with nearly 2 decades of experience spanning software, engineering, and working with organizations like HP, Larsen & Toubro, Infotech, and Cyber Global. So she joins us to share her perspectives on enterprise AI, responsible innovation, and the future of AI governance. Jofia, welcome to USAII AI Expert Talks. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Hey, Mike. Thank you so much for having me in this podcast. So I focus primarily towards building AI application, enterprise AI applications responsibly and ethically. And I, being part of American Council of Ethical AI, I have built the responsible AI frameworks. It's kind of part of a responsibility also to guide the future generation to build and use AI responsibly.
One of the things we're going to talk about are AI demos that almost seem magical, but why is AI work inside of an enterprise fundamentally different than a great AI demonstration that we've all sat through?
Well, I think the simplest way to put this is a demo proves that a model can produce an impressive answer. And demo is about, producing an answer once. But in an enterprise system, what happens is it has to be consistent, right? The result that it has to be repeatedly. The outcome has to be consistent across different use cases, scenarios, the real business process. So demo is usually in a controlled environment. And if something goes wrong, we can quietly fix it and then we can try it again. But production, it is exactly opposite, right? The requests are kind of ambiguous, straightforward. Some could be complex questions. So the policies change and also the users have different permissions. And in production, when we see the model is only one part of the solution. Whenever a product has to go to production, we always think about in a complex model. Okay, high reasoning models should solve the problem. But in production, it's about the complete workflow and operational workflow. We need to have a trusted data. We need to have identity access controls, evaluation, monitoring system, right? There should be a fallback path. What if AI fails, right? What is a fallback approach? There needs to be human authority, human escalation, ownership. All this needs to be in place in production.
No, that makes sense. And for our listeners, is there anything that people most underestimate about moving forward with proof of concept to production?
The primary focus stays towards the complex model. In production, it's not about just a chat problem. When a customer is asking a question, we need to know exactly what model is responding, right? It's based on the user's access. Every customer might have different level of access, right? So if a customer is not allowed to know certain policies or anything, that document should not be visible, right? That the answer shouldn't go out. So there should be kind of a policy, restrictive policy, right? So there are different aspects around it when we build the production system. When enterprises or the teams build the application to the production, they tend to overlook all these operating workflow around the model. For example, Claude Opus, it's a very complex, reasoning model. So the common misassumption is that, okay, if I have one complex model, a high intelligent model, it can solve all the problem. But again, like I said, in production, model is only one part, right? The entire workflow is what we need to see. Access control, data, quality data, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the things I've seen in the real world is deciding what would be the first AI use case. And in many cases, I've been at the table with different departments, and each one saying, oh, I want my use case to be the first one to go into POC, and then if it's successful, going into production. And it seems like the loudest voice at the table sometimes wins. But giving information to business leaders, how should I choose that first enterprise AI use case?
That is when nowadays every enterprise want to adopt AI. I basically would start with the workflow bottleneck, right? What is the current bottleneck we have? What needs to be solved? So it shouldn't be about like where can we use generative AI. It should be mostly like where will it add value, right? And then we need to establish a baseline, right? Who is doing the work today, right? What decisions they are making, and how many cases there are such like that, and how long does it take for these implementations, right? So we need to understand the current process, right? And that is when we will be able to prove the AI enabled process is better when we bring in AI into that workflow, right? So it's always identifying the current bottleneck and then current process. Then we need to see like, okay, I can have a AI here. And then we can, measure, right, how AI has been. That would be the first approach.
That goes to my next question
Mhm.
is where do you feel the best place to start with a potential POC? Fantastic feedback on something that doesn't touch the customer, right? You never want to take a risk in the customer experience. But in your opinion, what have you seen as the first potential AI use case or use cases to try?
Like I said, customer facing is having high visibility. Something goes wrong, that is also like high impact. So, a good place to start would be something like an internal assistant, right? Workflow that we know very well, an internal system, right? It can be an HR portal, or it can be like, an HR policy chatbot, right? And employees can go and ask like about the leave policies, as simple as a summarization tool. So these are like less visible, but it will add more value, right? If something goes wrong, also the impact is less because it's not a customer facing, it's an internal tool. And that is where I would start actually. It doesn't needs to be like very impressive high end use case to begin with when you are, bringing in as a first adoption of AI.
No, excellent. And what would be the type of questions people would ask an AI assistant, internal AI assistant? I can just
Right.
imagine, what's our expense policy, but, is that too simple or are there more sophisticated use cases?
It's as simple as like I'm directly asking the HR, but then I don't want to take up their time, right? Something last minute came up. I need to know the travel policy. I have a conference to attend, right? That's where it add values. It save time of the HR, time of the employee waiting to get the feedback from HR. Some organizations will have the policy of raising a ticket for every HR query, right? So we can see how we are saving the time there. Mhm.
I've always felt bad having to contact HR because I feel like I'm contacting them too much. And when I do contact them, it's in the case of an emergency, right? I may be at my children's pediatrician and they had a specific question about the medical policy and I'm in panic. It would be great to get that information in a timely manner with the AI assistant. So in real world, I've been on the other side, and I can definitely see the value. Any areas after you've built out the internal use cases, after you've had those internal learnings, anything that would be a great place to start externally?
So one ideal approach is like as we build, as we are learning, right? We need to document all those framework, the learning path. So as we advance to the next use cases, the time consuming should be less because we already have a paved path there. So that will be a stepping stone for our next AI process, next AI application. So once we start with an internal, say it's a chatbot, we know how the process flows, how the document ingestion happens, right? So we can gradually advance it to a customer chatbot. right? So then advance to an external customer facing chatbot, but again with additional controls around it. When we advance to an external customer chatbot, every response needs to have kind of a guardrail. We need to make sure like we are not releasing any kind of sensitive company information to an external customer.
In your experience, it doesn't have to be, at your current employer. Have you seen or heard of a use case that you found impressive in the past year, 2 years?
Oh, yes, it is. There are many actually, right? LLM, how we are making use of this AI to automate the process. It's like you just send a message and the agent will take care of it. Agent will identify, classify whether it's a high risk or, does it need an emergency at attention. It's kind of taking out that human in the middle for unnecessary phone calls, right? This is just the negotiation and coordination. The agent is taking care. So I have seen those kind of advanced use cases, and it is very helpful.
And I love the way you said anything that can reduce 5 to 10 minutes of time in the workflow, because that definitely would have for me. Now, how would you quantify the ROI when you're saving 5 minutes, 10 minutes here in many, many different points in the workflow? How do you go about quantifying the ROI?
We need to first clarify like how are we measuring this, right? This ROI. Say the business one way is like measuring the business outcome. It saved my time, so that is an ROI, right? That kind of for the investment I did, I'm getting my time back. So that is one way to measure. How does the current process compare with the AI enabled process? So whether the AI creates a real business value, not just like saving the few minutes, but real business value, right? So say nowadays, every software engineers are using the coding tools, right? So what's happening is to sprint a task that can be complete that needs two sprint to complete it, they will complete in one sprint. Why and how? Because they are able to do peer programming with the AI coding tool, right? So that's way they are saving their time there, right? So where this time is being diverted to, it shouldn't be just okay that saved time is vanished away. Measuring ROI depends on the use cases, right?
How about the survey after the project with the employees and maybe the SMEs who were involved with the process before? Or have you heard of going to the users and saying, how has your work changed besides 5 to 10 minutes? What are some of the ways they quantify it?
We should always have the baseline, like I said, like before we put in an AI enabled process, what was how does the current time frame looks like, right? And once we add an AI enabled process, we can already measure, right, how much time it takes for that request to process. And also the business satisfaction comes in not just with the time saving, but with the accuracy of the product that we are putting in there. The AI recommendations add value, or does it make sense, right? So that should come from an SME. And another thing is like we need to also monitor, right? Is how many times the AI results is being override, right? So in a way that okay, its system is not performing, right? So that is also one thing that we need to keep account of actually.
Yeah, and this is a great point, and thank you for bringing it up because I haven't thought about this. Is that there's obviously the time savings, but a lot of people don't focus on the accuracy, truly decreasing the potential amount of risk across the board. So when you survey employees, they can say, "Oh, it's enabled me to focus on other things, and it accomplished tasks that were cumbersome or time consuming." But really having the employees say, "Wow, it's made my work much more accurate, and the numbers are better, and the outcomes are better."
Time saved is like a capacity we are creating. The actual ROI will appear only when enterprise converts that capacity into an outcome, right? Like how are we using that created capacity? So that is what the main point here, how we are actually using it.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the day that it obviously increases output. Do you feel we'll get there, or is that still way too far in the future?
We need to expand only, when the results support it. We see a lot of automations, right? As we give AI more advanced capabilities and automation, we need to know how we can contain that risk also, right? It should be in a bounded, controlled way. Like I said, we should expand the capability as only system can handle it, right? So yes, we will see how where it goes, but yes.
Yeah, it comes to the story of we have enough food on the earth currently to feed everyone, but it's really a logistics and supply chain issue. And
Hmm.
the hope is that, AI can solve that by, as an example, getting food and supplies to people in a remote area. And as you were saying, humanoid robots, autonomous vehicles could be one part of the physical AI, even if it's the simple task of folding laundry. So I'm really excited to see that part of it. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, right? I think it's important to talk about making it easier to save 5-10 minutes than having humanoid robot, clean your house.
Right. We are already there. We are already advancing towards that humanoid robots. Yeah, I'm also looking forward for, some laundry works. We'll see how it goes.
Me too. I'm already thinking about what they can cook and what they can serve. But right now
Right.
they're observing videos of home tasks, and the
Mm-hmm.
humanoid robot is just understanding, ingesting this video data,
Mm,
and
right.
they're starting to understand in a cup instead of being taught, you know, how to dance, right? That's just when you see the robots dancing, that's just a program, right? You're not actually saying
Right.
go out and figure out a new dance. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I mean,
Interesting.
I'm really excited about where the future is going there. And you said this, it's the learning from any use case that makes the second one easier. And who are the stakeholders that should participate in the process? Do you need security? Do you need risk? Do you need just engineering? SMEs on the workflow? Who do you encourage to get involved during the POC process?
Ideally, I would suggest, like, it's good to have a AI center of excellence team. And it shouldn't be only about having the technical team there. The center of excellence team should involve security representatives, right, business stakeholders, technical architects, and also from the legal team, most importantly, right? So together, collectively, they can take the decisions, and we can have the foundational framework. So the reason is, like, today, why most POCs are not seeing production. Why? Because all the teams are going through this siloed approach, right? They are building their own, so they don't know which one to prioritize, how to scale the use case, right? So they are not able to push to the production. A foundational team is there, which with a well-defined process, right? Like a reference frameworks, architectures. So with all those things, like, team have a proper guidance where to go, how to scale it, because they already have a paved path there. Also give them like tools, say legal will do their review and have all the approved models, everything ready, so they can start working on it, right? Enterprise data is the most important part, right? So all the policies has to be clearly defined, all the foundational frameworks has to be clearly defined. So again, it shouldn't be like a team or a committee sitting there to slow the work. The focus of the committee is to help the team to progress. So we are kind of building a safety path for the team to grow and move fast to the production. That is the whole point. Say, for example, I have a production deployment schedule next week. Okay, so this week there is a review going to happen. So in the review meeting, the security team identified this data, the data that you are using to train your model. You don't have approval for this data because this has a lot of PI2 information, or this is sensitive data set. You cannot use it for model training, right? So you cannot launch this. So a week before the launch, knowing this is not helping anyone. We cannot go
Yeah.
back and do anything, right? So the idea is like, a kind of a shift left approach of identifying, okay, whether this data, this source, understanding the data lineage, right? Source lineage. So all this, the principal governance architect or a chief AI officer from a high level be able to define this, right? Understand the governance, EU governance policy, say like NIST frameworks, right? All the AI governance, because as new models are evolving, new threats are identifying. So these processes are also getting updated. The person who has an idea and knowledge about AI and also about the threats that can come in and what exactly needs to look in, whether it's a data kind of governance has to build into the operational workflow of the system.
It wouldn't be an AI podcast unless I answered this question. AGI, 5 years from now, 10 years, next month, or
Yes,
beyond that? What are your thoughts on the AGI and the singularity?
it's evolving. Like we have to wait and see how it is. Like as someone who works in this field, right? I believe transformative power of AI and its capability. So yes, we will see where it goes.
We shall see. I think if I saw ChatGPT now as the first version, what we're using today, I would immediately think it was AGI because the changes, over the years has been dramatic, and now it's happening even faster. New versions are just so much better. When I have a long drive, I'll have conversations with the AGI, helping me with planning for meetings and preparing for a vacation. And so who knows, 6 months, 6 years, 20 years. But, I just wanted to say, Jofia, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a lot. Thank you for sharing your insights and really helping, enterprises understand what it takes to go through the process from planning to production. And to everybody listening, thank you for joining another episode of USAII AI Expert Talks. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future discussions with AI leaders from across industry, academia, and research. So I'm Mike Spaeth. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mike.